Okay, so last final thing in this notebook, let's have a look at reserved keywords continue and break, which can further simplify our understanding of code and also give us an opportunity to get some new specific behavior, desired behavior in a loop we are designing. First, the word continue, how it works. Well, basically, sometimes when you are going through a loop, you if some condition is met, you want to skip this iteration. So, for instance, you might want to skip all of the numbers which are even numbers or odd numbers, or you want to skip a specific number. For instance, like in this case, we want here we have a for loop, simple for loop, which without this code just simply prints all of the numbers from range from 0 to 4, but 4 is excluded. Remember, for convenience, we can skip this 0 here. But imagine that we want to skip the number 2. Of course, this is an artificial example, but imagine that you have a list of clients, and for instance, if some condition is met, you want to skip some of them, and I don't know, do not apply discount for them to them, or or you do want to apply discount to them, and so on and so on. So then you can use the keyword continue. So for instance, imagine that you want to skip number 2 here and you don't want to print it. Then we can use conditional statement which checks whether this is the case. This is the case we want to skip. And if yes, we can input the word continue here, and then Python will stop executing code inside the loop at this moment. So this line of code is not executed after Python has already seen continue. Whatever is written below, Python sees the word continue, it goes back to the top of the loop, and no matter whether it's a for loop or while loop, and just starts a new iteration. So as you can see here, for 0, this condition was not met, so Python just printed 0. For 1, just printed 1. For 2, this condition was met. Python has seen continue. It skipped the code, everything which was below, went back to the top, and took the next element. Next element was 3, and started executing this next iteration with I equal to 3. The condition was not met, so Python executed a print statement and printed 3. So as we have already discussed, this can be really useful if you want to skip some of the elements of the of an iterable which which satisfy a specific condition. Another keyword, as I mentioned, is break, also useful. For instance, if you want to stop going through a loop if something happens. So this is especially useful in for loops. When you have an iterable, you want to go through it all, but if something happens at some moment, then you want to stop executing the for loop. So we already, this is exactly the same example like here, but instead of using continue, we use break. So if this condition is met, and at some point it is met, Python sees the word break, it goes out of the loop and stops executing the code inside the loop, and goes either finishes executing the program or goes to the next code which is below. So yeah, as you can see, if I run this code, Python executes the for loop. I is first equal to 0, condition is not met, so Python just prints 0. 1 prints 1. 2, condition is met, Python goes inside, sees the word break, so it goes out of the loop and stops executing any new iterations. So this is why the number 3 is not printed here, because here when we were using continue, Python stopped executing this specific iteration concerning number 2, went back to the top and started executing next iteration. Here, when the word is break, Python stops this iteration and goes out of the loop and never comes back. So that's the difference between these two words. And now we can have a look how we can easily simplify the prime number example. Namely, if you remember, well, first of all, we don't have to use a while loop. We can start using a for loop, because basically, well, this is the same as before. We check whether the number is even a good candidate for being a prime number. So basically, if it's greater than 1. If yes, we assume that it's a prime number, and then we check. What do we have to check? Well, we have to check whether there is a number which is bigger than 2 and bigger or equal than 2 and smaller than x, so it's in a range from 2 to x, and if there is a number in this range which divides x. So what we do, we execute a for loop, and if we find such a number, if there is an I from this range which divides x so that there is no leftovers, so that the modulo operator gives us 0. If this is indeed true, well, then we change our assumption, we correct our hypothesis, we decide that the number is not a prime number, we change the variable prime to false, and we just break the loop. For me personally, this code is much more readable, much more easier to comprehend, because here I see what is going on. I will be checking numbers starting from 2, including 2, until x. I see that I will be checking numbers from this range. I see that what I'm doing is I'm checking whether a smaller number divides the big number, the number of interest, and basically if I find something like this, I just know that my number x is not a prime number. I break the loop. Python goes out of the loop, tries to execute the code which is next. Well, the code which is next is just giving the result of the function, and so the prime number is the number is not a prime number. If this never happens, Python goes through the entire range, executes the loop until the end, and the prime variable stays true, so the result is that the number is a prime number. So yeah, let's check whether the function works. This function is called isPrime2, so we can see that the result of this function is equal to the result of the function we had before, so everything works as expected. If you want, you can check yourself some other prime or non-prime numbers and check that the function works correctly. Okay, so that summarizes this notebook. We will see each other in the next notebook, which will concern lists. I wish you good luck with the exercises concerning this notebook. If you have any questions or comments, don't hesitate to ask them either through comments or in person or through some other channel. And yeah, that's all, and thank you for your attention, and see you in the next video.